Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Wilby Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 249, the Cooper Flag episode, as this year's NBA Rookie of the Year dropped 49 points on January 29th against World B's Charlotte Hornets. But I won't stop there, Bruce. Cooper then went on to score 51 points on April 3rd. Would you like to guess who he did that against?
I can't remember, although at the time it was a big deal, but no, I can't even remember.
World B?
I want to say the Indiana Pacers.
Close, but no cigar. It was your Orlando Magic. So back-to-back teams there for World B. And now I'm sure we'll certainly complete the trifecta here tonight and discuss World B's Knicks. But first, let's chat about Sunday night's Game 7 between the Cleveland Cavaliers and Detroit Pistons. And after the Cavs found themselves down in an 0-2 hole to start off the series, they end up clawing their way all the way back, winning 4 of the next 5 games, knocking off the top-seeded Pistons. Pretty impressive stuff, Bruce.
Yeah, I thought after the Orlando series that Detroit had sort of found themselves a little bit coming back from that. And I said whenever I said it on this show, that I think they sort of found something within themselves where they dealt with adversity at a very high level, came back strong. But you know what? Jalen Duren really sort of, crapped the bed in this series. I mean, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen dominated him. And look, he was exposed. Duren's a good player, but I just don't think he was ready for the moment. I mean, he missed a ton of shots at the rim, but I still believe he's a solid guy and he's a huge part of their future. But I just don't think he's a max guy. And look, Donovan Mitchell, explosive, as we've said so many times. He sets the tone for Cleveland. When he busts out of the gate hot, the team follows. But if there's one offseason assignment that somebody on Detroit really needs, it's Ausar Thompson. He should be spending all summer learning how to shoot threes. Right now, he's an and D guy, but he needs to become a 3 and D guy. And if he needs some advice on that, have him call Bruce Bowen, who struggled to shoot early in his career, but he learned how to make those threes and became a key member of 3 championship teams.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Bruce. I think if he was able to add that to his game, he's pretty much a max player, just given how good he is defensively on that side of the floor. After Game 7, Kenny Atkinson said, hey, one of the reasons we found success on the offensive end was to move the ball away from Ausar Thompson. If Thompson was guarding the guy with the ball, move it to somebody else and we'll attack there. So, big kudos there to Ausar on the defensive end. But yeah, if you could add that corner 3 dynamic to his game, it would definitely be a huge separator for the Pistons moving forward. World B, what was your thoughts into this series?
Well, when you consider the stakes and you consider the opponent and where the game was played, I think this Cleveland victory on Sunday was the most impressive win by any team in the playoffs this postseason. And
wow.
It wasn't just because they won a Game 7. They won it on the road against a team in the Pistons that basically dominated the Eastern Conference. They had a lead. They had a secretariat lead, it felt like, in the conference for the longest time. And the Cavaliers went in there and won twice in Detroit after they struggled on the road in Toronto. So it was a really impressive. It was their most efficient game offensively against the league's second best defense. It was their best offensive performance and efficiency since Game 1 of the Toronto series. They dominated in the paint, as Bruce was talking about. Allen and Mobley, were absolutely fantastic, and they just dominated the game. Like, you would not figure. You could pick them to win. You can't pick them to be better, 31 points per 100 possessions better than the best team in the Eastern Conference, a 60-win team. But there they go. What we saw from the Pistons in the Magic series was not a mirage. They really struggled, and we can go back. They probably should have lost that series, but we thought, as Bruce mentioned, hey, they found their way out. They got the wake up call, and they did through first 5 games, or first 4 games, I should say. But Cleveland winning on the road in Detroit in Game 5 and Game 7 was really impressive. Kind of put that whole debacle they had in Game 6 to rest.
Yeah, and Bruce, you mentioned that front court, just the havoc that Evan Mobley and Jared Allen both had on Jalen Duren. Get this, Jalen Duren averaged 9.3 fewer points in the playoffs than he did during the regular season this year, which is the biggest drop-off in an all-star season since Elgin Baylor in 1969. So to put it lightly, how far he dropped off, quite a bit with that front court defense. And one other thing that really impressed me in Game 7 of this one on the road for the Cavs was Donovan Mitchell. He dished out 8 assists in this one without committing a single turnover against the Detroit Pistons defense, no less. So give credit to Spida playing clutch there.
Speaking of turnovers, I mean, Cade Cunningham really was, heroic in the series, but he had way too many turnovers. Yes. I mean, he averaged 5.4 per game against Cleveland. That was after averaging 5.9 a game against Orlando. So really, he has a huge burden on that team because they don't have a lot of shot makers there. So he has to create, he has to do a lot of things. But averaging that many turnovers, in the playoffs that's going to be a problem he has to work on too.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I think with Cade Cunningham too, they got to find some more help around him because without Cade Cunningham, I mean, I don't even know if they're a 40-win team, maybe a 40-win team at best, but they're definitely not a 60-win team without Cade Cunningham, and that just goes to show how talented he is. But needs some help around him.
Yep. Think about how they would have been in the playoffs. They absolutely would have lost the Magic series if Tobias Harris didn't step up the way he did. He was their number 2 guy with Jalen Duren not being able to perform the way we expect. By the way, Jalen Duren just had a bad shooting series because he didn't get a lot of shots. He doesn't get a lot of shots during the regular season. He averaged less than 10 a game. So when you don't get 10 shots a game and you shoot as well as he has, when you're not making a couple, it doesn't take much for you to, 4 for 9 is under 50%. And for the longest time this season, he was 7 for 9. He had, he was tough to stop in the middle. But, as Bruce mentioned, he just did not come up when he, like an all-star, when he needed to be an all-star in this series and to try and win a championship.
Yeah. So it's going to be important to keep an eye out on the Pistons heading into the offseason. Of course, now that they have a really good young core, this might be a destination for some free agents that want to compete and win now. And that's going to be a change because typically guys don't want to go to Detroit of all places to, sign a contract when there's so many different other organizations and cities to choose from. But this might be the time where someone, puts their hand up and goes, I'd love to go play with this group and help give them a boost. So should be interesting to see who that player might become. All right, Roby, it's time to talk about your Knicks because they are in the Eastern Conference Finals, and that is now set as they're going to be facing off against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm guessing, Roby, this wasn't the matchup you were anticipating. So how are you feeling heading into this one facing the Cavs?
Well, staying at home instead of traveling to Detroit always seems like the better option. They really couldn't have asked, if you were the Knicks and you asked for the dream scenario to get to this point, you couldn't ask for a better situation. The top 2 seeds are out, and that leaves you there facing the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team a couple of years ago you absolutely manhandled in Cleveland's first playoff appearance post LeBron. So it's as good a setup as you could. You couldn't ask for a better spot for the Knicks to reach the NBA Finals, unless you went back, say, a year ago when they had the Pacers and had home court advantage against the Pacers, and we know how that turned out. So, 2 years in a row, they've had a dream scenario set up for them to get to the NBA Finals. Last year, they didn't get there. It cost Tom Thibodeau his job. We'll see what happens if they don't get there this time with the home court advantage, with this situation, playing as well as they did the first 2 rounds. They outscored opponents by over 19 points a game. According to NBA.com, That is the greatest 19.3 points per game. That's the greatest point differential in the first two rounds, through the first two rounds, since the NBA went to 16-team format 43 years ago. That's a ridiculous domination of your opponent. But, for a win by 29 points, I'll do that.
Yeah. Bruce?
Well, I mean, look, Karl Anthony Towns has really been playing probably the best basketball of his career, certainly of his Knicks career, but he's really going to be tested against that combo of Mobley and Allen up front. I mean, Cat, has now had to kind of go through this 8-day layoff, and I can definitely see him being a little bit rusty in game one, if not the rest of the Knicks as well. Allen is probably going to guard him most of the time, and that's going to allow Mobley to patrol the paint on defense, and that's going to impact Brunson. But, he's so crafty, if he's going to get into the paint, and he's not going to score as much in the paint, but he's going to kick the ball out to, Bridges, OG, Hart. They're going to make a few jumpers, and I think that's going to be how he kind of counters Mobley's presence in the paint. And look, James Harden absolutely positively has to really step up from the games that he had against Detroit. Just 38% from the floor, 29.4% on threes. And although he did have a really important performance in game 5, he's 37 years old. And when you watch him play now, it's almost like he's, instead of being in like third gear a lot of times, he's in second gear, And I could see him, he's kind of become more mechanical at this stage of his career. Takes him longer to kind of do the things that he's always been able to do. And I could see him absolutely getting toasted on defense against New York. And when he's got the ball, he's going to be hounded by the perimeter defenders that the Knicks have. Hart, Bridges, Anunoby. They're going to all take turns against him, and include it in Spider too. And then throw in a little Grand Theft Alvarado to make James pay if he dribbles the ball too much.
Yeah, this is a fascinating matchup, if you ask me, because you look at it and it's like you talked about Cat at the beginning there, Bruce. He's really going to be tested and challenged by that Cavs front court, which is elite defensively. But on the flip side, I mean, James Harden, even Donovan Mitchell, they're going to be tested by the perimeter defense in the backcourt by New York. So it's like whichever of those two factors, whoever looks better in that challenge is probably going to be the team that ends up on top. Who responds the best and kind of overcomes the adversity and the challenges of each strength defensively that the team has is going to be the winner of this outcome, and ultimately punches their tickets to the finals, if you ask me. Wolpe, what's your thoughts on that? It is kind of just interesting looking at like the strengths and weaknesses of these two teams.
Well, Bruce mentioned how Karl Anthony Towns going to have to deal with, say, Jared Allen. That leaves Mobley free. But the one thing the Knicks have the option to do, and because they have so much depth or whatever, is perhaps putting Mitchell Robinson on the court at the same time with Karl Anthony Towns. They've done this about 6 times in the playoffs, and I think it's like 20 minutes total over the first 2 rounds. But they absolutely have dominated opponents when the two of them have been on the court. It's like they grab over half of available offensive rebounds. Their offensive rebound percentage is ridiculous, and they outscore opponents by almost 30 points per 100 possessions in those 30 minutes with those two on the court. Like I said, it's only been 20 minutes, but this is kind of a matchup where you could see maybe those two on the court together to counteract the Cavaliers' big men. And Cleveland, this is the same core basically, Harden notwithstanding, that went in a couple years ago. And as I mentioned, the Knicks absolutely dominated them on the glass. And now they have to go up and prove themselves that they can handle the Knicks, front court when it counts, grabbing rebounds. That's been a big deal for the Knicks when they're not draining every shot in the world. It seems like 25 threes in that clincher against the 76ers. But they're dominating in every facet right now. So the pressure is really on. The pressure's on the Knicks because they're the favorite now, and they have to get to that next round, this being the finals. But the pressure's going to be on Cleveland. Can they handle is the life on the road? They got to win one in New York, you figure. Can they win a game in New York after beginning the playoffs? They didn't look like they got absolutely beat up in Toronto, and they look like more of the same in Detroit. until the last couple of games. That's, if you're Cleveland, that's like, wow, we can, we have a shot to win a road game here.
Mike Brown's work this season coaching this team, I think you're really going to see it pay big dividends in this Cleveland series, because the Cavaliers have had to play 2 grinding 7-game series, okay? The Knicks have sort of had, a nice, I'm not going to say easy run, but look, Atlanta challenged them a little bit. Philadelphia did not. But against the Cavs, all those extra minutes that the Knicks starters didn't have to play during the regular season, and the experience that some of the reserves did get in playing, I think that's going to really, allow the Knicks to have much fresher legs in this series. I'm not sure about the mental edge after the 8 days off, but that's going to get resolved one way or another, probably by halftime of game 1. Okay. Only if they dig a huge hole in game 1 with Cleveland getting a big lead is it probably not going to come home to hurt them. But I really feel like, it's going to pay off that Brown used his whole roster, and he's going to be able to really push the pace against Cleveland. And we'll see if they have enough energy to stand up to that, Maybe they will, but maybe that'll be a problem for Cleveland.
Yeah, I think I could definitely see that being a problem for Cleveland, given, the 7-game series they just endured. And I'm curious to see if, because of some of the perimeter players that the New York Knicks have, will we see a guy like a Keon Ellis, who hasn't really played that much come playoff time? Will he get some run out there? Will Dennis Schroeder play a little bit more out there? Those are the type of, roster and rotational decisions I think Kenny Atkinson might have to, consider at times against this very deep New York team in order to keep fresh legs out there on the court, because as you guys both mentioned it, I mean, this team goes super deep. Obviously they had some big leads, so they haven't had to play, heavy minutes, 48 minutes a night, like they did with the Tom Thibodeau years. So this roster is ready to go. They've had some time to prepare and gear up for this. And, Cleveland's at a disadvantage there. But the one thing I will say for Cleveland that I always like when it comes to a Knicks-Cavs matchup is Donovan Mitchell in Madison Square Garden. Of course, he's from New York. He is going to be fired up for this one. I have no doubts that Donovan Mitchell's going to put on a show. But as you already pointed out, Bruce, James Harden also has to show up too, because without him, this team's not going to be able to compete with this New York Knicks squad.
Hey, by the way, we talk about Mitchell. He's got to shoot the ball better from the perimeter. He shot only 31% in the regular season against the Knicks, which isn't going to get it done. And on catch and shoot threes in the playoffs, he was over 41%, or he was about 41% during the regular season. He's 7 for 39 on catch and shoot threes in the playoffs. That just isn't. If that doesn't turn around, that's not going to get it done for this team. At the same time, we talked about turnovers. Cleveland is second in turnovers among all the players, second most in turnovers among all the playoff teams. Only the Lakers, who are long gone, average more in their first round. They're averaging like 16.6 turnovers a game. That's just not going to get it done against, when you have possessions are so huge in the playoffs, and they're huge as further along you go. And you start giving away those possessions to a team that has dominated the way the Knicks have, it's going to be another long series if that doesn't turn around.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, with that said, it is time for our official Eastern Conference Finals predictions. Who wins the series, Bruce, and how many games?
For the Cavaliers to win this series, they need to bust out of the gate fast and win the first 2 games in New York. Oh. If they go 1-1 in the first 2 games, that's not going to be enough. The Cavs got to win the first 2 games in New York. And I don't see it happening. Huh. The Cavs do have Spider, as you pointed out, who can win you a game on his own, as we've seen. A longer series, of course, favors the Knicks because of the wear and tear, plus the home court in games 5 and 7. So I think it's going to be the Knicks advancing to the finals, but I respect the Cavs enough to say it's going to take them 7 games.
All right. And I'm going to go with the Knicks in this one as well. I think they're going to get it done in 6 games. I think they're going to be able to wear out this Cavaliers team. I don't think they're going to get the shooting they need from a James Harden, possibly even from Donovan Mitchell for a 6-game series. And also Max Strus, the guy we haven't talked about yet. He's played pretty well so far this playoffs, but he's going to have his hands full with OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges defending him for most of the game too. So he could have his fair share of struggles. I just don't see the shooting being able to keep up with what the New York Knicks can do offensively. So I've got Knicks in 6, and we'll let you finish us off here.
Knicks in 3. They're playing 7 games. Never mind. Well, I think the Knicks will win in 6 games. I just think the way they're playing is really now the layoff is a concern. We talked about it. Let's see what's going to happen that first half. And by the way, the Cavaliers have been great in the first quarter. The last 3 games, shot 50% each in the first quarter. Each of the last 3 games, getting off to good starts. I mean, they just absolutely dominated that first quarter in Game 7 to set the tone. So the Knicks have to come ready to play because the most explosive player in the series belongs to the Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he has 50-point potential at any time. We've seen it happen in the playoffs. So they have the most explosive player. He hasn't been that for the most part in the playoffs, with the exception I think he had a 40-point game against Toronto. But other than that, he's been okay, but he hasn't been that explosive guy. But if he gets going, he can become that villain that the Knicks fans love to have, whether it's Reggie Miller, whether it's Trae Young, or whoever they want it to be. It could be Donovan Mitchell if he gets crazy.
Yeah, and let's not forget the New York Knicks passed up the chance and opportunity to draft Donovan Mitchell and instead selected a young French guard by the name of Frank Ntilikina. So I'm sure he'll always remember that one as well. All right, now pivoting to the Western Conference, let's start with the semifinals because on Friday night, Wemby and the Spurs took care of business on the road as well to ensure that there would be no Game 7 back in San Antonio. And they had a commanding win over the Wolves, 139-109. World B, the Spurs ended up winning each of the last 2 games of the series by at least 29 points. Mitch Johnson and company really can't ask for much better momentum other than, that heading into a much anticipated matchup with the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, can they?
No, 3 of the wins in the series were by at least 29 points. So it was just crazy domination. I mean, the last 2 games as you mentioned, they won by 59 points total. They won each of the last 8 quarters in that series, the last 2 games. So they absolutely dominated the series. We thought it might be a closer series, and they quickly put that to rest. The only blemish was you saw Wemby perhaps loses. There's a way he can lose his composure if you mess around with him enough, and he threw that stupid elbow and got himself kicked out. And fortunately for the Spurs, he didn't get suspended. But I mean, that aside, where was the problem for San Antonio in this series? There really wasn't much of one. That the kind of performance you expect from the team they're facing now, Oklahoma City, that's not necessarily the performance you expect from a team as young as San Antonio in this spot. But boy, they keep showing us that youth doesn't matter when you got as much talent as they have.
Yep. Bruce?
There have been a number of playoff games this season that were total ass kickings. And the Spurs-Wolves series had 3 of them. All Spurs wins in games 2, 5, and 6. The Game 6 domination by the Spurs to close out Minnesota on Friday was a mugging, followed by a beatdown, followed by a curb stomping. The Spurs outshot the Wolves 56-38%. They out-rebounded them 60-29. You heard that right, 60-29. No Spurs starter played more than 30 minutes. Julius Randle was brutal in the series for the Wolves, averaged just under 13, 8 below his season average. He was 7 out of 25 from the floor in games 5 and 6, 28% for those of you who are keeping track. Minnesota came into the series with a huge advantage in playoff experience, but, losing Dante DiVincenzo and then with Anthony Edwards less than 100%, the Spurs took full advantage. Victor is a force of nature. His mere presence on defense means that opposing teams need to make shots from outside the paint and beyond the arc. Very tough to sustain, and the Wolves could not.
Yep. And with that, I'm kind of going right back to my Uno reverse card, Bruce, back to you. I'm just curious, do you think, given what happened with Minnesota, I know Dante DiVincenzo, tremendous loss for this starting core group of guys, and I know they picked up Ayo Dosunmu, who was a very welcomed and gave him a nice boost at the trade deadline. But do you think it's time that they kind of shake up this core, or can you run this core right back next season again with Julius Randle, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards? Can you put that crew together and run it out for a third straight year, or do you think we'll see some changes?
I think at this point, Naz Reid is a better player than Julius Randle. He's a more effective player. So if they could find some way to move Julius Randle and trade him or whatever and have Naz Reid start for those guys, I think that would be an upgrade for that team. Randle, he's a good player.
Yeah.
But he's not getting you to a championship level. I mean, he has too many flaws in his game. And he's a 6'9" guy who plays below the rim. He has some skills and he's a hard worker, but he just falls short. So put Naz Reid in the starting lineup, see if you can move Randle, and then that might be enough to get them to that next level. Although, look, with OKC and San Antonio in the West, I think it's going to be a long time before any other team represents the Western Conference in the NBA Finals, because those two teams, they're young, they're great, and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that you have Anthony Edwards in his prime, though, you gotta shoot for the moon right now and get some talent around him and see how things shake out. A team that kind of comes to mind when you bring up Julius Randle is the Phoenix Suns. And they didn't really have an established four-man this year. They got Dylan Brooks as their 3. They've got their 5 in Mark Williams. But Julius Randle would make a lot of sense there, kind of replacing the Oso Ighodaro, Ryan Dunn. I don't know how the contracts would work out in that one because Julius is being paid a ton of money, but he might make some sense in Phoenix and just be another guy that Phoenix brings in with the chip on his shoulder to join a Dylan Brooks and a hungry group that feels like, they're underappreciated, let's say. So just a team that could maybe be a good fit for Julius. Wilby, what's your thoughts on this core group in Minnesota? And if you were a Wolves fan, would you want them to shake things up?
I think I would want them to shake things up to try and compete. I just don't know where you're going to find that player that gives you suddenly the edge, or at least puts you on the level of San Antonio and Oklahoma City. I really don't see it. I mean, where Julius Randle, if you want to move him, that's fine. What are you getting in return that puts you over the edge? Naz Reid becoming a starter, that's fine. Is that really what's going to put you over the edge? Rudy Gobert's another year older next season, and he plays fine, but it's just another year older. It's going to be tougher and tougher. This reminds me of where the 76ers have been the last few years, how they tried desperately to build around Joel Embiid while they have him healthy in his prime and everything, and it's one second round exit after another for them. Mm-hmm. Now the Timberwolves, back-to-back conference finals appearances, they got that going for them, but who's looking at them right now as constructed and sees them competing with San Antonio? We saw what just happened here. They got absolutely dominated in that series. Who's seeing them compete with Oklahoma City? They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I think they have to make moves. What moves they are, I don't know what's going to happen to get them over the top.
Yep. And one last note on the Wolves. We spent a lot of time on them, but I just want to point out Mike Conley said he is not retiring and he has still more left in the tank for next year. So maybe that will give LeBron some extra encouragement to come back as well. If Mike Conley can do it, King James can do it.
There's a guy that could make you competitive if you want to try and figure out a way to get LeBron up there to Minnesota. I don't know why he really would.
Good luck with that.
But that would certainly – we're looking at players. Who can you get? I mean, he's going to be available, we hear.
You're not getting him in Minnesota, World B. I'm sorry to tell you.
Yeah.
He'd go to Cleveland before he'd go back to Minnesota.
Yeah. All right, Bruce, let's talk about this highly anticipated Western Conference Finals, because NBA fans are going to be treated to a fantastic 7-game series between the top two teams out west. Spurs and Thunder currently underway as of taping here. It is midway through the third, and it's, again, 58-57. Thunder with a 1-point edge at this point in time. what's your thoughts heading into this series, and how much fun is this going to be?
Well, many of us have focused on the Spurs' record of 4-1 against OKC during the regular season as evidence that the Spurs may have cracked the code against the defending champs. But the last time they played each other prior to Monday night was February 4th. Now, since that game, the Thunder 32-6 combined regular season and playoffs. Spurs combined regular season and playoffs 36-7, virtually identical winning percentages. Okay. They're truly the two best teams in the league. OKC, of course, with the edge and playoff experience over the Spurs, but so did Minnesota have an edge and playoff experience against the Spurs. Yeah. OKC has the two-time MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The Spurs have Wemby, who finished third in the MVP voting behind, SGA and Joker. But in the 4 games SGA played against the Spurs, he was held slightly below his average and was atrocious from downtown. He shot just 19% from three-point land, 4 for 21 in the games against the Spurs. So, look, both teams are excellent defensively. You're seeing that in the Monday night game 1. Watching OKC guard their opponents is like watching a power play in hockey. Almost looks like they have 6 guys against the other team's 5. But there's great team defense, and then there's Wemby's brand of defense. I see a lower than average scoring series despite all the offensive talent on the court, and it is not going to be a short series.
Yeah, well, if game 1 is any indication, you are going to be right about it being a lower scoring series if it's 58-57 midway through the third quarter. World B, what's your thoughts into this one?
This is a ridiculously deep Oklahoma City team. I mean, so far in this playoffs, even if you include Jalen Williams, who's played in just 2 games,
back.
He's back now. They have 11 players who have averaged at least 10 minutes a game in the postseason. That's absurd. They have 4 players, if you include Williams, averaging at least 18 points a game. 7 players are shooting at least 50% from the field. 7 players that shoot at least 37% from 3. There's so much talent on this court for Oklahoma City. It's absurd. They're just, they're defensively, they're the best defense in the league. They were during the regular season. By the way, the Spurs were been the best defense in the playoffs in terms of efficiency. But they're not lockdown defenders. Teams shoot okay against Oklahoma City, 46% from the field, 36% from 3. It's not that dominating in-your-face defense like other teams. What do? They turn you over like crazy. Yep. 17 a game in the postseason, and the gap is like 6. They commit 5 or 6 fewer turnovers per game. That's taking away your possession, and that's scoring at the other end for them. And all of a sudden you look up and you're down 15 and you don't know how it happened. They're just a ridiculously good team. They dominated the playoffs just like they dominated the start of the season, just like they dominated the end of the season. I'm a big fan. I love Wemby. He's a generational guy. We've talked about at length. If he can take them to the NBA Finals, it'd be one of the most amazing stories we have seen from a player that young, 22 years old, to beat the defending champs with the best record. It's going to take an awful lot, but when beyond the court in the playoffs, they're outscoring opponents by 22 a game per 100 possessions. That's an absurd number. That's like what Joker did when he's on the court during the season. So it's a really tall task for the Spurs, despite being 4-1 in the regular season. They have the defense. They've shown it. As you mentioned, it looks like it's just going to be a low-scoring series throughout this playoffs. But it's a really tall task for the Spurs, as good as they are, to beat a team like the Thunder 4 times again.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone can do it, but if there is one guy that can put a stop to that, I think it is Victor Wembanyama, because that is the one guy they've had troubles with this year. Kind of the same profile that they've always had troubles with. I mean, granted, it was one game in the NBA Cup in Las Vegas, but Giannis beat them, 2 years ago now, in the NBA Cup championship? And they didn't have any answers for him. Of course, this year, they haven't had any answers for Wemby. Now, playoffs is a whole entirely different stories when it's a 7-game series and you're just focused in on that that one opponent making adjustments each and every game. But if anyone's up for the task and has the ability to do it, it's going to be Victor Wembanyama. And I think that's one of the biggest appeals to us as NBA fans, is just knowing, they've kind of had their way with every team, pretty much every player outside of Wemby so far this year. So keep an eye on that. And you can tell the urgency that Oklahoma City has going into this one, as Jalen Williams did return here for game one. I didn't know. I mean, there wasn't many reports how healthy he was or how he was trending. And just watching early looks of this game, I mean, he came out with a bang. He's got 15 points in 19 minutes. He actually is second in scoring for the Thunder here tonight. So he looks like he is back 100%. They're absolutely going to need him throughout the series.
By the way, you talk about Wemby's impact. We talked about it on the game or whatever. You talked about during the season series against the Thunder. When he was on the court, 126 minutes, the Spurs held the Thunder under a point per possession, and Thunder had one of the best offenses in the league. So he absolutely has a major impact on this, during the season series. And he could be that guy that is a difference maker. And what a story it would be to think about a guy like that in 3 years with all the hype surrounding him to take down the defending champions, who were clearly the best team in the league all season.
Yep. All right, Bruce, it's time for our official Western Conference Finals predictions. Who wins and in how many games?
I just want to point out that in game one, the Spurs are holding their own, and De'Aaron Fox was a DNP because of that ankle. So the fact that they're showing in game one that they can hang with this team even without De'Aaron Fox is a huge statement, whether they win this game or lose it a close one. As you guys know, and the people who listen to this show know, I was on the Spurs bandwagon before pretty much everyone else, and I see no reason to jump off now. These two teams should dominate the Western Conference for the foreseeable future. Both are young. They're led by superstars. They're well coached. They have solid organizational cultures. My official prediction is Spurs to win it in 6 games on their home court. But if it should go 7, I like OKC to win game 7 on their home court. That's how close this series looks to me. And whichever team wins the series will probably be favored in the finals. But my official prediction is Spurs in 6.
All right. World B?
The Spurs have – Bruce is right. He was on the Spurs bandwagon before anybody else. He got right up by the driver. He was the first one on the bus there, on the bandwagon. So he gets full credit for that.
10-2, baby, on the steering wheel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of reasons to like the Spurs. It looks to be really tough. This doesn't seem like their time to get it done. It looks like it's Oklahoma, especially the way Oklahoma City's playing, by the way. They absolutely just rolled through their first 2 rounds. So they don't look like a team that's on cruise control. They look like a team that's getting ready to win another championship. I think it's going to be Oklahoma City in 6 games.
All right. And I'm actually going to follow suit there, World B, and take Oklahoma City in 6 games. I think if it goes 7, all bets are off, even if it's in Oklahoma City. I think at that point in time, the Spurs have shown enough to where, you stretch the game to 7, that they've got some type of recipe for success on how to attack this Oklahoma City team and find flaws no other teams have found at this point in time. But I think Oklahoma City, as you pointed out, it's their time. They're more ready. I think the Spurs, I'm a big believer, you got to kind of lick your wounds, learn from them. And they've never really accomplished much in the playoffs together, if ever, because they haven't made it yet. This is their first taste of the Western Conference Finals, and I think they're going to be showing that they're more than capable of hanging in there. But is this the year that they're going to knock off the reigning champs and one of the most dominant teams that we've seen? I don't think so. So I've got the Thunder in 6, but if it goes 7, I'm actually going to flip-flop with you, Bruce. If we go to a game 7, I hope you have room on that bus still for me, because I'll sit in the far back, but I want to be on the Spurs bandwagon come game 7.
As long as you can put your coins in the machine up front, you can sit in the front, Russ. No free rides. Well,
Okay.
maybe for you. Maybe for you guys, it'd be a free ride.
And by the way, we talk about how you have to like earn your way or learn as you go and all that. The Thunder had to do that too. It's not like the Thunder, as young as they are, it's not like they just showed up last season in the playoffs and won a title. They had to learn as they went. They took a hard loss to the Mavericks a couple years ago when they're on their way to the finals. So not everybody has to learn, but that seems to be the way you do it. You learn as you get in the playoffs, you get a nice run. But you know what? We keep talking about their youth for the Spurs, and they keep saying, we don't care. We're going to keep playing. We're going to keep dominating. And the way they dominated the last round, end of that last round, there's no reason to not get off the bandwagon in Bruce's case.
No, not at all. And I'm glad Bruce pointed out that De'Aaron Fox isn't even playing tonight, and they hold a lead here with 4 minutes left in the third. I mean, that speaks volumes that they're even in this game without one of their key leaders out there on the floor, one of their veterans that does have a little bit of playoff experience. Now, let's stay on the topic of the Thunder, because their star guard, SGA, was just announced to be the back-to-back winner of the MVP award, and he did it in a landslide, which was kind of a surprise to me. He received 83 first-place votes. The Joker, who received the second most first-place votes, only received 10. And also, Bruce, your boy Wemby somehow only received 5 total first-place votes. So, Bruce, were you surprised this vote wasn't even close at all?
I was surprised that it was such a wide margin. I mean, it's hard to disagree with the pick. I mean, look, my choice was Wemby. And look, Cade Cunningham got the other 2 first-place votes of those. And many voters agreed with me that Luka Doncic wasn't close to the top 3 guys, although he did finish 4th, but it was a distant 4th in the voting, and he had 0 first-place votes and just 1 second-place vote. So the fact that SGA and Wemby will slug it out in the Western Conference Finals will make for some additional drama and some good discussion about who is the most valuable between the two. It's going to be great for the fans, and I suspect the 48 Minutes crew will be watching this closely, waiting to see what new tricks each guy has up his sleeve. But I was not shocked, obviously, that SGA won. I expected it to be a little bit closer than 83 out of 100 first-place votes. That to me was like, wow, okay,
Yeah. What's your take, World B?
Well, when you really look at it, I mean, he was probably the most consistently dominating player from the beginning of the season all the way to the end. I mean, remember it was second game of the season, he put up 55 in a double OT game against the Pacers. He had on 30-point or 35-point game against Houston on opening night. He scores 30-plus points in 11 out of their first 13 games. He came and showed himself right away that, I haven't, don't forget about me. I'm not just a one-time guy. And they had the best record, and he's the best reason. He was the biggest reason they had it. Yeah, there's a lot of talent on that team. Obviously, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, one's a former All-Star, one was an All-Star this year. So there's plenty, and as mentioned, they're ridiculously deep, and they're going to be for a while. But the numbers are the numbers. 31 points a game, a career high 6.5 assists a game, shoots 55%. I mean, he's the first guard in the history of the league to average 30 points a game, shooting 55% from the field. That's an absurd performance, for a guard. So all the numbers, he has them. He has the team with the best record. It wasn't my choice, but it makes perfect sense. It's not the crime of the century that he got a season he got the MVP.
Yeah, and one of my coolest reactions to this news was how it was actually announced, and that was with Steve Nash, of all people, having the opportunity to announce SGA as this year's winner. That was pretty special because SGA himself called it a full circle moment. For those that do not know, Nash has been a mentor for SGA since he was just a little kid. And, of course, the only other Canadian to win back-to-back MVPs is Steve Nash. So really cool moment for the both of them and, representing their home country of Canada to go ahead and, celebrate and, cherish that one together. I thought that was really cool and well done by the NBA to allow Nash to do that live on television on their prime broadcast.
Yeah, but Shams Charania had stole everybody's thunder because he's really the one who announced the MVP.
Sure, yeah.
The unauthorized announcement, I might add, and that could create a little bit of something between ESPN and the NBA on that, because even though others probably knew it too, or maybe not, but Shams, he pissed off a bunch of people by doing that. And not saying he was wrong to do it, but it kind of broke the protocol. And considering he works for another broadcast partner of the NBA, I wouldn't at all be shocked if Jimmy Pitaro of ESPN gets a call from Adam Silver or somebody in the league office saying, guys, come on now.
Yeah, great point there. And I'm glad that you pointed that out, Bruce, with your experience in that field for sure. So with that, you just mentioned Shams. Shams was busy reporting new news here on Monday afternoon, and we got official word that Jamahl Mosley will indeed be the next head coach of the New Orleans Pelicans. Coach Mosley inked a 5-year deal in New Orleans, and World B, I think it was you that mentioned it before, but you had mentioned if the Pelicans want defense and to establish a culture of defense moving forward, Mosley would be a great hire.
Yeah, it seems like, and not to mention, he's got a young group of kids. We mentioned Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen are two rookies who look great as the season went on. He's very comfortable in helping to develop young players. Look at the guys he had in Orlando. I happen to think we talked about this before. I think he's a solid coach. I think his voice just got old in Orlando, and it happens. We've talked about it. Your voice can get old after a while, especially with a group that's been there for years. So let him come down there. He certainly has an impact on the Magic's success. They had 21 wins the year before he got there. 2021 season, they won 21 games. The last 3 years, they had 3 straight non-losing seasons, 3 straight playoff appearances, and first-round losses in each one. But that, from where they were to where they are, it's a pretty good run for Jamahl Mosley or whatever. He's obviously, we know how the Magic are defensively. He's got some pieces now to help out the offense, but we thought he had some pieces to help out the offense in Orlando, and the best they could do was 18th in efficiency this season, which was their best in the last 14 seasons. That's how bad Orlando has been offensively. So he's got pieces to work with, and we'll see what the roster looks like. I thought Zion Williamson, quietly because they were so bad, had a really solid season. He got out, he was on the court over 60-plus games. That alone should get your number retired in New Orleans, I suppose, given his track record. But he's got pieces to work with. The cupboard's not completely bare, and we're not that far removed from New Orleans being a solid team, itself. So there are pieces there to work with, and I think that group will be able to improve in year one pretty significantly, I think.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Zion, because Coach Mosley does have familiarity helping develop former Duke power forwards that were picked number 1 overall. So we'll see what he can do with Zion.
If Zion and Banchero have, exchange weekly calls or whatever, that could be a problem, for Mosley, because, from what you read, it didn't exactly end. I'm sure if you listen to the reports, Paolo basically helped Jamahl Mosley pack his bags out, heading out the door.
Yeah, well, I think if Paolo tries to call Zion, Zion's already busy on calling Grubhub for a delivery, so we don't have to worry about that. Bruce, what's your thoughts on this coaching hire?
Well, as we kind of predicted on this show last week, Mosley spent very little time on the unemployment line. And, he's taken over a team that went 26-56. But as you guys have pointed out, there is some talent there. Zion, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Derek Queen, Fears. His teams in Atlanta always played hard. They were aggressive on defense. But unfortunately, they always seem to be plagued by injuries on that team. And hopefully that will, not be the continuing case with Zion, whose entire career has been plagued by injuries. But look, he helped develop some young guys here. Wendell Carter Jr., Franz Wagner, Paolo. Jalen Suggs. And that was something that Joe Dumars was looking for in his new coach. So I think this is going to be a good hire. It's going to work out well. And, I expect the Pelicans to be, much improved next year.
Yeah. And, Coach Mosley didn't have much shooting down in Orlando, but thank goodness he does have Jordan Poole in New Orleans. So, boy, he can count his lucky stars. He's got shooting now. Jordan Poole's in town. So should be a lot of fun to see what he can do, because in all seriousness, this is a great group for him to develop and take to the next step here. I mean, Herb Jones, I think, can really excel under him. Yves Messi, I think, is another big that can really find some positivity with a coach like Jamahl Mosley. And then Trey Murphy, I think, can just continue to excel in his role as a scoring guard on this group. So
don't forget Murray. Don't forget DeJounte Murray. He is forgettable because he did not see the court much because of more injuries to deal with. But these are all big ifs. But if that group is healthy, there's more talent than they'll probably get credit for.
No doubt. And with that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.